Greetings, everybody. From the very top, let me apologize for my coughing. There will be coughing in this video, and if there isn't, it's just divine intervention, I guess, because I'm very sick. But I had to set that aside to come here and have a conversation with my African brothers and sisters in the world and other persons in the world who happen to listen to this channel. I say welcome. But this message is clearly, specifically for African people. And in this time and age, I still have to explain to Black people that they're Africans. You know, we're not going to go back to the fact that the word Africa in itself has changed and someone has, other people renamed the continent. But we know what Africa is. And it means, in my mind, that you are a person. You don't mind being called Black. But African, you run away far from that. I'm addressing African people around the world, whether you want to agree that you're African or not. Excuse me. Now, yesterday, I touched on the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, bragging about his new venture of building a new parliamentary building to house men that have absolutely no honor in our country. Individuals whom he said some were there 35 years and he is doing 21 years. And the question to these men is, what have you done? What have you done for your nation? What great change have you made to where your name is going to go down in history? What contributions have you made to the Black society in which you helped to destroy? What positive contributions have you made to the landscape of Jamaica? And as men, would you not at least have this thing about you to say, I'm a man? Claude McKay say, like men, we face our destiny. Dealing with the murderous pack, like men. We must live and die like men. We'll talk about Claude McKay another time. Well, this is going to be long because I'm taking my nice sweet time. Those of you who are interested, I don't care if there's only 5 views for this. Those who are listening to the end, I say thank you now. And hopefully I can strike up a conversation with you in the comment section. And perhaps we can continue this another time. What I want to say in this is that what you see, the condition of Black people around the world now, kind of gives us an idea of who we are as a people, who we've become as a people since slavery, and we're not going to blame our former enslaved masters. I'm not going to just blame them because we are powerful people. We have autonomy. If we understand that, like them, like all the persons who have violated the African man, the European, the Middle Eastern, and as things stand, the Asian now is our new colonizer. But it isn't as if the other colonizers just went away and just left us to ourselves. They're very present in our lives, and we have demonstrated to them that we're not able to lead or guide ourselves. So you can't blame them for their presence because we've always invited them to come and to demonstrate to them that we cannot do without them. We can't live without them. They are parents and we are children. That is what our governments have done, both in the continent and in the Caribbean. Okay? Well, what I want to say here, without any apology, is that the attitude you see of African people now is one that has been with us for hundreds of years. That willingness to go without honor. This is why we only have a small amount of who they consider to be hero or heroine in our Jamaican space, for example, or anywhere in the world. Those who fought for freedom, whether it be in the West or in Africa or in the Caribbean regions, these are few and far between. The state of the African man, as it is now and back then, it's demonstrating now, though, that oftentimes we are quite weak. Very weak. And those who are strong-minded because the African man is not physically weak. He's very strong. But when you look and see how he's faring against men of other races, he looks very weak. Who cares if you're physically strong and all you want to do is to be servants? Who cares about your physical strength when you have decided that it's okay to perform at the bottom? If there's a hierarchy, you are at the bottom of the rung, not because anyone forced you to be at the bottom of the rung, but because you refuse to stand up like men. Gallantry is not something that is important to the African man in this time. And those who are often pushed aside and mocked and ridiculed, if not killed. Not just by outsiders, not by other people who are enemy to our race, but also by our own. Okay, let's leave that for now. We're looking at more philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. I've read this before, but I'm going to do this today. And the reason why I'm doing this is to say to you that everything that you see happening in Jamaica now was happening up to 80 years ago. The mindset of the people have to first change. Understand, those who are in position of power, Muta Baruka called them bossy slave. Those individuals who find themselves in parliament, who are now in the position where they want to build parliament to represent, compete with the best of the best in the world. What they fail to understand that when you have this parliamentary building or any structure that demonstrates, monstrosity and greatness, and you have nothing else to represent that except structures or building, then you're nothing. When you go to Europe, I've been to Italy, and you see some of these great designs. But when you look at the history of the Romans, whether it's brutal or wicked, you still have to respect what they have built. So they don't just show their gallantry in structures or in building. They show it in the way they have operated in the world and how they have gone out. Brutal in many cases, cruel in many cases, but they have done for their people, and they have cemented their name in history as people are forced to be reckoned with. Okay? The black man over the years, from the time of slavery, and of course they've erased a lot of our history back in the day when we were kings and queens, when we had Egypt ruling the world, really, when people sat at the feet of our greatest. They have discarded that. That's not something that's taught in Jamaica. The average black boy or girl in Jamaica does not see himself as great. When you hear of king and queen, they don't think of themselves as king and queen. They think of white folks who are king and queen, like Queen Elizabeth and all the other Europeans who are in that role. I'm going to try to push through this. And what I'm going to try to show you in this video is that the mindset, that weak mindset of the African has always been there for hundreds of years. And until we get rid of that, the kink in the brain, the kink in the mind, there's no point. I think someone said that, I can't remember. Until you get rid of the kink in your mind, forget about taking out the kink out of here. I think it was the same Marcus Garvey. We are becoming, are demonstrating that we're inherently inferior in the way we think. Okay? For many years, they have said the black man and the black woman was, stupid, intellectually inferior. Because at the time when we had the Quashi syndrome, when the individuals in slavery had to use their mind to try to survive by acting and playing the fool to Bakramasa, they said they were foolish. But they weren't foolish. Those enslaved people were not foolish. They were trying to survive. They had to use cunning to get their way. But now, over time, and adaptation and willingness to not be more than just slaves, we have really begun to demonstrate an attitude as if we're inferior intellectually. I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying our demonstration of it. Because if the most educated, the most prestige among us in our societies are showing that they're no smarter, they're no wiser, they don't have the ability to demand more for themselves than those who are at the bottom. What else can we say? What is keeping them in this present state of mind that allow a strong black man to stay in his country where he has power and not try to do something positive for himself and his people? Now, many of these individuals who are not doing anything for people, granted, they are riding high on the hog and they're benefiting financially, and they're setting up cornerstones for their children to come, but they don't understand your actions or your inaction is going to affect you. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you are a very rich man in this world, you're still a rich Negro in the eyes of many people. And you might think you have acceptance, but take off that title or go somewhere where nobody knows you, Mr. Andrew Holness and all of your cronies, and go to a place and go to America and just drive in the car on your own without, protective service watching you because you happen to be, individuals who are in politics that have special rights and privileges granted to them by virtue of their office. Just go there in disguise and see if you don't get pulled over and killed. Just like any local person, you're always black in the eyes of those who rule you and control you. And you, Mr. Andrew Holness, I also want to say that maybe you're acting in subversive ways. And in your mind, because you think like a person who is still in bondage, you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to separate myself from other folks who have been former colonizers, but now I'm going to align myself with the Chinese and with the Mexicans, because this way I'll show that I'm doing my own thing, I'm charting my own destiny. But unless you are doing it using your own mind and the power and strength of your own people, you're still in bondage. You're worse off, as a matter of fact. I'm going to rest it here for now. Now, I have a couple pages marked. And these pages will demonstrate to you that what you see in Jamaica is not new. And that it's going to take hell. It's going to take, I don't know what it's going to take for things to change, because slavery's chain, long broken, has still left us with shackles on our minds, on our feet. And we are like those with the Stockholm Syndrome. We fall in love with those who keep us captive and hate us. And we also have that disease, the Stockholm Syndrome, where we go back to the ones who prosecute us. We always see our adversaries as our friends and our friends as our adversaries. I said to you the other day, why is it that the government of Jamaica or no political people have mentioned anything about Africa? Because they have no true allegiance to Africa. They see Africa as a backward place. They fail to see how other nations in the world live in Africa, and how Africa is like a fuel to many other places in the world, or the greatest wealth. Africa, the continent of Africa, one of the richest places on this earth, and yet black people suffer and die there. That's a different story. Marcus Garvey, I'm going to read this for you. Only freedom and nationhood can bring peace to Negroes. Excuse me. Only freedom and nationhood can bring peace to Negroes. Nationhood, when I think of nationhood, I think about building strong communities. I think of growing and just, learning from our past and moving forward, forward, building strong people. Not structures, people. Okay? Marcus Garvey left Jamaica, went to the United States of America and did great things. He went there and put in the mind of African people that we were not inferior and that we were men like every other man who should chart our own destiny, and was able to amass a huge following. And as a result of this, his presence was seen as a threat, because after these African American people and other people from wherever they came from started listening to Marcus Garvey, these people start getting empowered, start getting this sense of, I know who I am and I'm great. Okay? When he started doing that, people start looking at themselves. They start walking different. They start holding their head up. They start to have this national and racial pride within themselves. And Marcus Garvey got set up, sent to Jamaica, and tried to bring what he learned, and he had to run away. And here's why. It's the same Negroes that you see in Parliament building right now, the same Negroes with the same mindset. They're the same ones who Marcus Garvey had to run away from. I'm going to contextualize what I have to say to you. I'm going to give you date and time, and I'm going to make you understand. Sometimes you got to break it down this way for people to understand. Okay? Only freedom and nationhood can bring peace to Negroes. He said, having traveled for hundreds of years across the desert and prairies of human prejudice, we have now arrived at the crossroad of racial destiny. Each and every race today seems to be traveling in its own direction. Everybody else but black people, really. The great human family has divided itself, and each unit feels that there is a special goal to be reached. Hence we hear the cry of Japan for the Japanese, China for the Chinese, India for the Indians, Europe for the Europeans, and now the 400 million Negroes of the world are shouting in tones stentorian, Africa for the Africans. Not only has humanity divided itself along racial lines, but it has become more suspicious. No one group believes the professed intention of the other. In that, selfishness of purpose has so surrounded us that it is apparent that truth, love, honesty, charity have taken their flight to another world. So he's saying truth, love, honesty, charity have taken its flight to the other world. I mean, it's not real. When you hear people speak, they're not telling the truth. They've got no love. They're not honest. And in terms of charity, they have ulterior motive. Because of the absence of these virtues, man is not disposed to pass his destiny over to his brother, but seek to find his own way out. So we're not trying to share. We're not trying to coexist in the space and enjoy all the natural things that are here for us all. It's not happening at all. Just at this time, therefore, it become opportune for the Negro, amidst all the environments of aggression and heated preparedness on the part of others, to strike out along his own lines and build for himself an independence, a power through which we can live secure. Just at this time, therefore, it becomes opportune. It is necessary for the black man, amid all the environments of aggression, everywhere you are, the aggression that you're seeing, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, all of these aggressions that you see, the heated preparedness on all the part of others, meaning the Indian, the Chinese, the white, the Arab, every other nation, have no problems in drawing a line of demarcation against, to separate themselves from African people. Are we agreeing on this so far? And we want to lie and pretend like, yes, we are respected, we are valued, we are wanted, we are needed. It does not mean that all Negroes must leave America and the West Indies and go to Africa to establish a government. It did not take all the white people of Europe to come over to America to lay the foundation of the Great Republic. Therefore, those who write disparagingly of the grand program of Africa for the Africans are doing so without paying attention to history. So he's saying, we're talking about Africa here, but that doesn't mean you have to physically all go to Africa for us to understand that we are one people. This was written February 20th, 1932. That makes that 78 years ago. Marcus Garvey was saying this. All right, let's go on. He says, to strike out along his own lines and build for himself an independence, a power through which we can live secure. It's necessary for us to do this, to chart our own destiny. It does not mean that all Negroes must leave America and the West Indies and go to Africa to establish this government. It did not take all the white people, I'm repeating, of Europe to come over to America to lay the foundation for the Great Republic. Therefore, it doesn't have to do the same if we're looking at Africa. That's what he's saying. I desire each and every one to realize that the Universal Negro Improvement Association is not teaching Negroes to discard and throw away opportunities that may be beneficial to them locally. To the contrary, we say to all Negroes in America, the West Indies and elsewhere, seize all opportunity that come to you. But remember that our success educationally, industrially, and politically is ultimately based upon the protection of a nation founded by ourselves. Repeat. I repeat. Remember that our success educationally, industrially, and politically is ultimately based upon the protection of a nation founded by ourselves. Stop asking other people to come and run your place, to chart your destiny. Stop depending on other people to make you look wonderful. Stop claiming the glory of other persons as your own and make your own glory. Some people seem to think that the program of the Universal Negro Improvement Association is too big, too elaborate. But what of the program of the other races and nations too? Are they big? Are they elaborate? What about the program of Ireland? What about the program of India? What about the program of Egypt? Are they elaborate? What do they seek? They seek freedom, complete independence for the people who make up these countries. And so we of the Universal Negro Improvement Association seek a program that will bring about freedom for the 400 million Negroes of the world. For the consummation of this program, it is our bounded duty to work unceasingly, night and day, with might and main. We must do this, or brand ourselves as pygmies occupying a place that is our due on the fringe of the civilization of others. Let's do that again. For the consummation of this program, it is our bounden duty to work unceasingly night and day with might and main. We must do this or brand ourselves as pygmies occupying a place that is our due on the fringe of the civilization of others. So if you don't go out there and understand the importance of, demanding freedom and going and taking it, demanding it and reinforcing it and making sure that it's yours, you will be like just pygmies. Just like the Jamaican people in Jamaica now, the government of Jamaica and the people alike are like pygmies. Because you got China, you got all other places, Mexico and other places there, charting their own course and getting very wealthy even as the locals look on. And the government stand there biting their nails. Well, they're not biting their nails. What they're doing is participating in the destruction of the Jamaican people and hiding behind their big words. Marcus Garvey wrote this February 20th, 1932. This appeared on the front page article in the Negro World, February 20, 1932. This makes it 78 years ago. 78 years ago, he was talking about exactly what is happening now. Okay, let's continue. Now, I often hear Mutabaruka refer to these parliamentarians as bossy slaves. And I'm reading this because it endorses that. So if it is happening, and this article was written July 9, 1929. Listen, Marcus Garvey died 1940. June 10, 1940. That's 78 years ago. Okay? And it's not his birth we're looking at. We're looking at these things that were written before. Did I say born? I mean died. He died 1940. 1940. June 10, 1940. 78 years ago he died. And these things that I'm reading was before that. So you see this disease. The disease mind that the black man has from then is the same one you're seeing now. It's just getting worse because now they're big traitors. They're not only did they have this weak mind back then, but now they're benefiting their mind. Their weak mind is now, learning how to steal and rob the people. Rob from their own people. So the old history about Africans being caught and sold into slavery, it's not a lie. And what I wanted to do yesterday was to talk about the Maroons. And I'm going to do that briefly in this, but I'll come back another time. But we hear stories about how the Maroons were selfish and how the Maroons, signed treaty with the UK and how they should apologize. Apologize to who? It's the same Negroes that they had to deal with then. These guys who decided that they would rather die free than live in bondage. They did what they had to do because we still have those slave minds here who, even if they get the freedom to escape, they wouldn't want to escape. And the Maroons did what they did. They escaped and they fought for their freedom. And we're hearing that they signed treaty. Please understand when they're saying that Maroons were traitors. Forget that argument, because it's still the same divide and rule argument. You know, trying to divide black people against these individuals who have substance, because they embarrassed the Europeans, Great Britain. When they could not defeat the Maroons, they had no choice. This is how Europeans are in general. When they can't beat you, they will join you. And these guys fought using whatever methods and tools they could use to gain their freedom. And at the end of the day, listen, when you stand up and you fight for what is rightfully yours, the individuals who you fight and beat have no choice but to respect you, because they see you as their equal. White folks, for the most part, are not cowards. Let's give them that. They're not cowards. They believe in going out and demanding whatever is theirs, doing whatever method they need to use to get whatever is theirs. That's not weakness, that's strength. And because we are taught to say that is evil and that is bad, that attitude in the white folks is not. They're doing what is necessary for their survival. Each man to his own and all of that. And so when they go out there with that attitude, we have to learn how to go out there and chart our own destiny and demand what is rightfully ours. Because the people in the world who are winning, who are great leaders, who are greatly respected, they are powerful. And they demand what is theirs and they go for it. They don't care who they walk on or step on or stomp on or whatever. At the end of the day, each man for himself. Hence some of the science theories, about survival of the fittest. That's not cowardly. Those minds is like people who say, I deserve to be here, and they will do methods. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. They do what they have to do for their survival. And if they have been our greatest teachers, we should learn from these individuals. Mota talks about the bossy slave. And here this article does confirm it. July 9th, 1929, this was written. It says, Marcus Garvey says, in all countries and communities within our civilization, we have people belonging to different classes who make up the population. The economists, however, regard the working people of a community as being the better class of that community because they contribute to the wealth and upkeep of the community. We no longer regard the best dressed people as the best class of our population. They are really regarded as a lazy dross of our society and are not really counted as being of much value to their community or to their country. The well-dressed ones, the ones who occupy office, the ones who say, look at us now, building structures that they can't really afford, but we got to show the world that we are wealthy. Individuals who are comparing themselves to the so-called first world and other developed nations who have done everything that is necessary to build themselves and their people. Little Jamaica, where if you got sick, chances of you dying just from a little flu in Jamaica is a great possibility. Because we have no hospitals, we have people. I was in Jamaica and I went to do a pregnancy test when I was there. And the woman asked me to pee in a container, in a little plastic thing. It looks like a lid from a soap bottle. You know your liquid detergent, that lid that you use to measure your soap? That's what the lady gave me to pee in. And after I was done, she rinsed it out and put it back, waiting for somebody else to do that test on that same piece of thing. That's the kind of healthcare we have in Jamaica. Disgraceful. But they have no shame. They have no shame. Those are the bossy slaves that Mota Baroka talk about. The lazy dross of our society that Marcus Garvey talk about. In Jamaica, there's a difference in this regard. The more you dress, the more you can show off. Even though you have to borrow other people's money to do so. So the building that they're making in Jamaica, that is not our money. That is not Jamaica's money. I guarantee you that's money that is borrowed. Maybe it's by the person who is probably going to win that so-called competition. The money probably comes from them. They're just pushing us through this little ring or this little lie to tell us that, yeah, this person won it fair and square. When they're the ones they're borrowing the money from, but they don't want to make it so obvious. They are borrowing other people's money to make themselves look big, show off. The higher up you are regarded in the order of this society. So we do not wonder when the editor, she says, we do not wonder when the editor of the Gleaner referred to the higher ups in a recent editorial and news article because he sees the social elevation of the class only through the clothes they wear, irrespective of their real substance and worth to the community. Can you hear that, Randy? I listened to your video. Do you hear what Marcus Garvey said? He said the editor, the same Jamaica Gleaner, referred to these beasts as higher ups because he sees them through a certain lens. You know, the elevation of the class only through the clothes they wear, irrespective of their real substance and worth to the community. They've got no substance. None. They just look pretty. They just love appearance. They have no depth, nothing about them. Jamaica is going to take her place in an intelligent and progressive country alongside the other intelligent and progressive communities in the world. If so doing, we must destroy the old order of things whereby the really stalwart people of the country have been looked down upon and an infinitesimally small group of upstairs or upstarts held up as the master of the situation. This does not mean to say that any unfair or unconstitutional methods are to be adopted in carrying out this policy, but it's our duty to educate the people of this country to a better outlook, that they may understand their general worth. This is the duty of the black man, and his duty shall be performed without scruples. The duty of the black man. So we're not going to be dunce and stupid. We must be intellectuals. We must educate ourselves in such a way that when we're competing, when we're speaking, when we're, performing, we are equals to other men, not just how we dress. Now, I don't know if the government of Jamaica believe that they're anything else but a damn laughing stock in the world. And other nations, other prime ministers, other governments must know that. They see it. You're the only one who don't see that you're a clown. That's why other men can approach you the way they do, because they don't respect you. There's nothing about you to respect. Where's the dignity? Do you have the respect of Castro? Now, Castro was someone who was hated by many, but he was respected. And you made that reference, Randy, and it couldn't have been a better point. He was respected until his death. Who's going to respect you when all you do is bow and cower before other men? You worthless black people. Worthless black men. If we can help to bring about a happy and a more prosperous working class, we will have made our decided contribution to Jamaica's development. But we can't have a strong working class if there's no job. If no one is creating factories. If no one is supporting the people in a way that is going to help them to grow, to be able to take care of their family, to be able to stand out like men and say, I did this, I built my home from my sweat and my labor. How can they stand up like men? That's why men in Jamaica are beggy. They come like girls, and the beggy thing doesn't just start at the bottom. It starts at the top. These men are shameless. Borrowing money from China, borrowing money from the UK, borrowing money from everybody. The whole world is tired of you and fed up. And now trying to realize that you are like a big girl, big woman, waste woman out here begging. So China came in and started lending you, and now you're the biatches of China. China rule you. China, you are China's girl. Let me go back to what he said. And excuse the rant today, people, because I'm very upset. If we can make these two classes that they ought to be, the other classes will be able to take care of themselves. So it says focus on the working class. Don't worry about the elites. We're not going to accept any dictation and rule from a minority class simply because they wear certain kind of clothes or live a certain inflated life that they cannot maintain. He says regular people of Jamaica, regular working class people, please do not allow these stuffed up shirt, suit and tie kind of people to come up in here and try to dictate rules for you, because they're in the minority group. They're lazy. They don't do anything. They're just on the society. They're the ones who destroy the people through their, ridiculous self-hate. We want prosperity for everybody. And it's because of that desire why we want changes socially, politically, and economically that will contribute to this great ideal. This is the People's Political Party. This is what we shall do next January. He said, what I want is changes socially, politically, and economically. All I can see in our country right now, the governments that we've had and the one we have now, is that they want changes financially for themselves. They're not including any of these things. And once again, this is written February 1934 in the Black Man newspaper. Let's continue. He says, we can remember when the Universal Negro Improvement Association, through its potentate, attempted to bestow titles upon celebrated and illustrious Negroes, that certain people laughed at the idea. The practice was even ridiculed by Negroes themselves, but those who understand the progress of nations and people and the development of civilization know that there is no greater incentive towards individual service than the reward of special honor. They've got no honor. They don't see themselves as honorable. They don't honor the people within their societies, and therefore they cannot be honored by other people. You see, he's saying when he decided to start walk with your head up, start carry yourself in a certain way. That's why he made his people wear uniform. When they go to their meetings, they would be dressed militantly in their uniform, because until you change the mind of the people, until you understand and give people a sense of pride, national pride, and individual personal pride within a person, they cannot know their value or their worth. 1913, the African Times and Orient Review, London, October 1913. This speech was given. So, how has things changed? The same thing he was fighting for is the same thing that many people from Jamaica who currently live abroad, this is what they want to see for their country, but we never have leaders who think like Marcus Garvey. They don't want him. They want to uphold the status quo. They like being children. They like looking to their some of their former oppressors to dictate their life and to order the way their life go. And you can't blame this individual. If children come to you begging you for your help to lead them, you've got to lead them. The black man has been like a child, so destructive in so many ways. And even when they have people trying to teach them or lead them or guide them, it never occurred to them that I'm a man too. Let me stand up like a man. No, 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 no. He says the Englishman of a later time, puffed up with the conceit of his superiority, born of his villainies in the connection with the slavery and the slave trade, engineered the situation unto which he was pleased to call the Rebellion of 1865. And when he had shot down in cold blood and hanged and butchered Negroes to his satisfaction, he closed the issue of the foul plot by depriving this island and its loyal and respectable citizens of the empire of their birthright, and robbed the country of its character of full liberties enjoyed during a period of 200 years. And I'm reading this part for the Mr. Wholeness, who claimed that he is celebrating the glory of our past history. Hello. The rebellion of 1865 was met with cold blood, black people being cold-bloodedly hanged and butchered in the island, respectable people of the empire, African people, based on the fact that they were removed from their continent and brought there. It became their new birthright. And after that happened to them, they were robbed of the country. They had no liberty for over a period of 200 years. So what the hell are you talking about? Glory. What glory? What glory, man? What glory? You're a disgrace. Now, here's how, for the governments in Jamaica who are stooges, here is how a man think about creating legacy. January 2nd, 1930, Marcus Garvey had his manifesto and presented some ideas of what he had plans to do should his party become elected. Number one, he said, if elected, I shall do everything in my power to make elective the following. 1, representation in the Imperial Parliament for a larger modicum of self-government for Jamaica. Self-government, self-rule, self-government. 2, protection of native labor. He's always looking out for the working class, always looking out for the people, because he knows that's how you're built. Every government knows that. Before every election, every government knows that when you look out for people, make sure they have jobs, make sure they have health care, make sure they have things that allow them to not just survive, but to just grow and change. These are the individuals who normally win. And I'm proud to say that regardless of whatever history you might hear of Canada having their own situations with First Nation people, but you have to be proud of their accomplishment and the way they see their people and the rules that they create for their people, but not just rules, the things that they put in place so people can benefit, can grow, can be strengthened, that can stand up in the world and be proud of their achievements. These men who are political leaders in this land have a lot to boast about. They do. Marcus Garvey says protection of native labor. Number 2, a minimum wage for the laboring and working class of the island. Number 4, so you see he's making the people, and he wants to make sure that they're not taken advantage of. He says they must have a minimum wage. 4, a law to protect the working and laboring classes of the country by insurance against accidents, sickness, and death caused during employment. A law to compel the employment of not less than 60% of native labor in all industrial, agricultural, and commercial activities engaged in this island. So he was saying you can't bring people from China and bring people from other places to come do the work when Jamaican people need that job. Marcus Garvey was putting that out. Marcus Garvey was actually looking out for the interests of the people, and not like this man Oldness who's talking about building structure so he can make people prosperous. How the hell building structure? For the most part, that contract is not given to local people. It's going to be given to foreigners. And when the Jamaicans come to work on that, they're going to be general laborers, get tossed and treated like crap until that work is done. But here's how you build people and build self-esteem and build, a nation. Forced laws created to force not less than 60% of the native labor in all industries. The expansion and improvement of city, town, or urban areas without the incumbent of or restraint of private proprietorship. So he says the expansion and the improvement of city or town or urban areas must make sure he will make sure that private proprietorship does not dictate this thing. Okay? That the people themselves are going to be included in this progress, in this ideas that he has. An 8-hour working day throughout Jamaica. Now, when you go to hotels in Jamaica, I go there for breakfast in the morning at 7 o'clock, 7:30. And when I go for dinner at 10, the same staff is there. This is what Marcus Garvey was talking about, to make sure that they're working 8 hours working day throughout Jamaica. A law to encourage the promotion of native industries. Land reform. So we're not having crown land and having land that the Queen doesn't want because she'll never go to Jamaica to live and her children don't want it, but it's in her name anyway, to make sure that the wealth is distributed equally among the people in Jamaica. A law to impeach. Okay, let's go back. Land reform. A law to impeach and imprison judges who, with disregard for British justice and constitutional rights, deal unfairly. Number 11, a Jamaican university and polytechnic. 12, the establishment of a government high school in the capital town of each parish for the supply of free secondary education. This is how you build a country. Making the people focus. The center of building is the people. So you're making a high school in every parish, and making sure that, the people, 60% of the people have work, at least 60%, making sure the universities and whatever are available to everybody in the country. A public library in the capital town of each parish. Education is critical, is necessary. That's why we have so much ignorance in Jamaica. People just killing you because they have an opinion that is different from their own. Do you understand me? So it says a library. The people need to read more, to be educated, to be informed. And then a national opera house with an academy of music and art. National Opera House with an Academy of Music and Art. We need this. We need this to be a part of our culture. African focused. Do you understand me? And then a prison reform. So prison doesn't become a business to the wealthy few, but individuals who find themselves in trouble for one reason or the other. Many of our guys who are in prison right now are in prison for stealing, because they were hungry, they didn't have a job. If they had factories, some of these individuals wouldn't have done these things. If they, some of these people are desperate, and in their desperation, they have done things, and now they're criminals. They've criminalized people because of their poverty. Many of these individuals who have run amok of the streets are children who grew up without proper care, whose parents were not able to deal with them in ways that were not harsh, because they were always angry. Hungry and angry doesn't go well together. I'm not going to go much further with this. I just want to say, as I have read Marcus Garvey words, I am making the point here to say that the Negroes that he was addressing back then is the same Negroes. They have not changed. They've changed, but they're worse. And back then, how many years? I said he died 1940. That's 78 years ago. And when we go back to 1926 and all these years that I've quoted to you, he was saying the same thing and he was not able to reach them. It's going to take, I don't know what it's going to take to change the mindset of the current Jamaica. They're bragging about their past glory. I have no idea what he's talking about, because I'm sure he's not talking about Africa. Because they have made sure that they don't introduce Africa and our strength and our wealth. They have played their fiddles. They're playing, it's like the story with the man who took his flute and took away all the rats, and then they failed to pay him the money that was due to him, and he took the fiddle and he's leading the children God knows where. That's what the government of Jamaica is doing, blowing that fiddle and leading the people astray, destroying the people. If Jamaicans don't wake up one day, very soon, they'll find themselves as slaves. And if you think slavery of the past with Arabs or white person was wicked, look what the Chinese is going to do to them. Stay blessed, everybody. It is a sad day. If this happens, if Marcus Garvey was saying these words so many years ago, so many decades ago, and that's still the condition of the African man, what do you think? Most of these guys in their jacket and tie and their suits sitting up in the parliamentary building, he said they're lazy and people should stop respecting them. And the people who deserve the respect are the ones, the working class people, and building and creating history and making sure that there's national pride on all that. It must begin with the people. Stay blessed, everybody.